worked in collaboration with the Wuhan lab. So now we know that he cannot protect our people or our country. We just received these documents that Trudeau has been covering up for years. Documents related to a massive security breach at the Trudeau government's most sensitive laboratory, where the most dangerous viruses and pathogens are studied and handled. We have learned that the Trudeau government's head of pathogens was collaborating with members of Beijing's People's Liberation Army who are responsible for bioweapons and bioterrorism. We know now that a People's Liberation Army official was able to gain personal access, walk in the door, look at computers, and have access to all of our most important virological secrets. Let me, if you think any of this is hyperbole, read the report yourself. This is from government documents, the Trudeau government's own documents. It says here on page 142, Winnipeg lab scientist Dr. Chu is head of the Special Pathogens Unit, the top person in that job. According to documents on page 242, quote, represents a serious and credible danger to the Government of Canada as a whole, and in particular at facilities considered high security due to the potential for theft of dangerous materials attractive to terrorists and foreign entities that conduct espionage to infiltrate and damage the economic security of Canada, end quote. It states further on page 239, investigators assess that Dr. Chu communicated with foreign entities during her trips to China. The evidence obtained from interviews and from information collected from the electronic content of her devices reveal that this is indeed the case. As a subject matter expert with access to sensitive information and dangerous materials, Dr. Chu presents a realistic and credible threat to Canada's economic security when conducting repeated and clandestine meetings with foreign entities, end quote. Then it says Dr. Chu conducted joint research with the Major General Chen Wei of the People's Liberation Army, who, according to page 236, is a noted top virologist at the Academy of Military Medical Sciences and is China's chief biological defense expert engaged in research related to biosafety, biodefense, and bioterrorism. Bioterrorism, end quote. And these are documents, this is right out of the government's own documents. Trudeau, what did he do when he found out about this? Did he immediately inform Canadians of the breach? Did he fire anybody? No, no one was fired. Did he call an inquiry to get to the bottom of it? No, he didn't do that either. Instead, he covered it all up. He defied 4 parliamentary orders to release these documents. When the Speaker tried to get them, he sued the Speaker to cover this up. He said it was all for national security, but now we know from a committee composed of 4 members of Parliament, including 1 Liberal, and 3 judges, and I quote, the information appears to be mostly about protecting the organization from embarrassment for failures in policy and implementation, not legitimate national security concerns, and its release is essential to hold the government to account. In other words, there was no national security reason why we couldn't have had this before. It was only because Trudeau didn't want the embarrassment before an election. So what did he do then? He collaborated, knowing this, he collaborated with Beijing to buy a vaccine for COVID. Could you imagine if the deal that Trudeau wanted to sign with Beijing had gone ahead and we had procured China-made vaccines after learning this information? That's what was in this guy's head. And if you think for a minute, because I know there'll be all kinds of excuses, well, he's not responsible and how could he possibly take ownership of what happens in his government. Let me quote him. He has a document called Open and Accountable Government. And I quote, as head of government, the Prime Minister has special responsibilities for national security, end quote. It's his responsibility. This is his government's lab. It's not a random university lab. It's the top lab for the Prime Minister's public health agency. And he is exclusively responsible for the machinery of government as Prime Minister of the country. So this is on Justin Trudeau. I will add one last thing. Not only did he cover it up, not only did he try to get a vaccine from China after knowing this, he called a snap election to make sure that the voting would happen before this came out. And what happened in that election? Beijing interfered to help him win it. This is a man who says he admires China's basic communist dictatorship. We cannot trust Justin Trudeau to keep our people and its country safe. We need a strong, conservative, common-sense government that will root out foreign interference, protect our critical secrets and our medical research, and stand on guard for our country to keep our people and our nation safe. Thank you.
On the Winnipeg lab, do you think the National Microbiology Lab infectious disease researchers should be allowed to do any collaborations with China at this point?
No.
Can you explain why?
Because we know that in this instance that our highest placed, most sensitive lab was infiltrated by people who collaborated with the People's Liberation Army, who did not reveal any of their ongoing partnerships with the regime in Beijing, and who transferred materials from our most critical lab containing our most dangerous viruses over to Beijing and worked in collaboration with the Wuhan lab. So I don't think this is the kind of collaboration we want. We should be collaborating with like-minded democracies that we can trust, not those that want to attack our interests.
Do you pharmacare?
So as Mr. Poilievre has said, the government's own documents have confirmed that the national security breaches at the Winnipeg lab represent a very serious and credible danger to Canada and a realistic and credible threat to Canada's economic security. As Mr. Poilievre has also said, in the government's own founding document, Open and Accountable Government, the Prime Minister alone is responsible for the machinery of government, and the Prime Minister has a special responsibility for national security. It is clear in these documents that the Prime Minister failed in his responsibility to protect the security of Canadians against a very serious threat against this country and its citizens. It's also clear that the Prime Minister failed to ensure that the machinery of government was set up in a way to ensure that these kinds of things did not happen at the Winnipeg lab. In addition to all of this, what is equally appalling is the cover-up. It was 3 years ago that we asked for these documents. In fact, as Mr. Poilievre has said, the House of Commons and its two committees issued 4 orders for the production of these documents 3 years ago. It was 4 years ago that these scientists were marched out of the lab in Winnipeg. And during these last 4 years, the government covered it up. It initially, as you will recall, tried to punt this to the NSICOP committee. And then it took the Speaker to court. And then it actually created this ad hoc committee of 4 MPs and 3 judges that took another year and a half to review these documents. So this has been a massive cover-up on part of this government, and it's particularly appalling in light of the fact that this is a government that came to office promising greater transparency. We have seen anything but. In fact, it has been said by information commissioners that we've seen a reversal in transparency on part of this government, probably one of the worst reversals in modern government, Canadian government history. We've also have a government here that promised to respect Parliament. And here we are, 3 years after we asked for these documents, and finally starting to get some of the truth behind what happened. And so this is a damning indictment on this Prime Minister, his management of the Government of Canada, and his lack of respect for our democracy.
Good morning, everyone. Canadians need to know that 2 scientists with deep relationship with many institutions inside the People's Republic of China infiltrated Canada's top microbiology lab in Winnipeg. While there, People's Liberation Army scientists from the Academy of Military Medical Scientists, which is charged with biology-enabled weapons, were able to gain a secret security clearance which gave them unfettered and unsupervised access to the laboratory and to the computer-based science network. This is a travesty and a breach of security at the highest levels that cannot be tolerated. Aside from all this, we know very clearly that the Trudeau Liberal government wanted to cover this up, denying 4 orders of Parliament, taking the Speaker to court, and calling an unnecessary election during COVID, which of course resulted in us understanding now very clearly that there was Chinese interference in that election. Canadians need to know also that this was not a national security threat cover-up. It was a cover-up to avoid political embarrassment. This is an embarrassment to our country, and Canadians also need to know who is going to be held responsible in this Sunny Ways government. Who covered this up? Who is at the head from a political nature? Why did they cover up for so long? And when will someone, such as a minister or a prime minister, be held responsible on behalf of all Canadians? I thank you.
Just one more thing we just want to add to this is as we actually look at this and you think about the documents that we all took a lot of time last night going through and the cover-up that we've been going under for the last 3 years because of Justin Trudeau and his corruption and his cover-ups. We've got to remember that if you look at page 97, paragraph number 5 in the CSIS document, it says, and this is where this gets really critical here when it comes to our national security, the Academy of Military Medical Sciences of the People's Liberation Army of the People's Republic of China and has offensive chemical and biological weapons capabilities. As per China's key national research and development priorities is to support national defense research projects by transforming the results of basic civil research into military applications. So although you have Justin Trudeau not at all concerned about our national security, more concerned about his political embarrassments, us as Conservatives under Pierre Poilievre want to make sure that we continue to go out there and support our national security and make sure that this never happens again. We don't know exactly what materials, technology, viruses, and other biological things that are in that lab were actually turned over to the PRC and to the People's Liberation Army. We know that they're interested in weaponization. And so we cannot have these biological weapons created in China and used against us here in Canada or our allies. You want to talk about an embarrassment. This is a national embarrassment, it's an international embarrassment, and our own national security is at risk.
Let me just say that this is a national security failure on the highest level. The head of the unit at the Winnipeg lab responsible for pathogens was collaborating with the foremost expert in the PLA with respect to biodefense and bioterrorism. And through it all, the Prime Minister was less than transparent with Canadians, and he covered it up. And the question is, who bears responsibility? And the answer to that question is very simple. Justin Trudeau bears responsibility. The buck stops with Justin Trudeau. As Prime Minister, he has special responsibilities for national security, and he has a lot to answer for this colossal failure that occurred under his watch.